Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Our flight time will be 5 hours and 24 minutes.
24 minutes.
And we're experiencing some turbulence.
24 minutes.
Today, we're going to be talking about this. This is the Hikaru dripper. I'm not actually James Hoffman. That's not actually that good of an impression, but if you think I should be James Hoffman for Halloween, leave a comment and just say Emilee Hoffman, and I will absolutely dress up as James, of course with his consent, for Halloween. So this is the Hikaru Smart V60 dripper. This dripper is created by Hiroia, which is a subsidiary company of Hario, and you probably know who Hario is at this point. Hario is the inventor of V60 and has a 100-year legacy as being some of the best glass makers in the world. And if you're watching this video, you're probably wondering if you should buy this because the Kickstarter just launched. I'm actually in Taipei right now, and I have not got to work with this other than the last 3 days that I've been brewing on it. So I did run it through some tests, but of course I don't own it, so I can't give you a review on it. Consider this more of a first look breakdown that's gonna help you decide if you want to buy this machine or if you're gonna pass on this particular project. If you haven't heard of Hiroia before, they are the creators of the Jimmy scale. No, not him. You know, the scale that comes off like that. And the Samantha brewer and the Samantha 2. No, not her. No, get out of here. The Jimmy scale and the Samantha both get their name from people that helped collaborate on the project. So Jimmy was somebody named Jimmy and Samantha was somebody named Samantha. And this is named Hikaru, which is actually named after the current owner of Hario. Just to give you guys a heads up on the bias of this video, they did fly me out to come check this out. I wasn't paid, but I mean, flying out is essentially a vacation of sorts with work involved. And I wanna make sure you know that ahead of time before you watch a whole video thinking you've been convinced of something. I'm not even here to convince you of this. I'm just here to show you what it does. So right off the bat, this is a home pour over machine that allows you, the user, to have more autonomy over what you're doing during your pour over, or at least that is what it claims to do. And similar to the more modern machines we're seeing, it has a very user-friendly interface that allows you to simply make coffee depending on the size you want, or you can get really granular and you can use an app, and on that app, you can actually get very custom and make this super nitpicky if you really wanted to. Starting with the design, it does have a very rounded, curvy design with a bunch of LED lights in the middle and a water tank on the side with this really nice textured wall right here. The outer body is a plastic type of material. However, it doesn't feel cheap when you look at it. The LEDs do change colors depending on what you're doing in the brew. So if you're warming up the brew, if it's in between stages, or if it's actually brewing, it'll change colors and it'll change patterns while you're doing that. I do wish there was maybe a bunch more in there and they could do crazy things, but it's a lot of work. The brewer sits at about 11 inches tall, give or take, and about 15.6 inches wide. And on the side where you're looking at it down the middle, it's about 6 inches. The power button is on the front of the brewer. The reason it is on the front and not on the top, because I did ask, is because there just simply wasn't enough space in this little area right here with the tubes running through. Allegedly, I didn't open it up, but I'll take their word for it. It has a Triton coated water tank on the inside, which can hold up to 700 milliliters. And if you're using the small brew section, which is around 18 grams, if you're doing about a 1:16 ratio, you can get away with about 2 usages of this machine without having to refill it. The water tank has a temperature probe inside of it as well as a scale underneath. It also has this cover that has a really nice rubber bit to it. I guess it's supposed to catch condensation. It has a little silicone pad at the bottom, which is removable, super easy to clean, and has this back base right here, which prevents you from misaligning your dripper. On the top, you're gonna see a display of buttons. It has a Bluetooth connection feature. That way you can connect to the app if you wanted to. It has a little water indicator, which will blink yellow when you are out of water and it needs you to refill. And don't worry, it's not gonna ever let you start a brew without having the right amount of water. So it'll make sure you're on check. Next to that, you're gonna have the small, medium, and large, and then personal recipe buttons, and you can toggle between the 3. For the temperature, you can go anywhere from 80 degrees Celsius to 96 degrees Celsius. It doesn't go up to boiling. Not that you necessarily want to, but it doesn't, and some people might want to. Which leads me to tell you, there are silicone tubes in here that come from the boiler as it's brewing and keeps it mostly at temp on the exit. The temp drop is somewhere around 1 degree, and of course you get some temp drop as it hits the bed and there's air exposure, but the bed is really close to the nozzle, so it's not that much. One of the things that actually I think they should update and they don't do is it does not preheat. And they said that was mostly for safety, and I totally get that it's for safety. Maybe if it could go up to like 150 and just idle there, which would reduce the time by probably a lot, I would be down for that, but it's also not a deal breaker. It is just something I would like to see because I'm a little impatient and I don't like to wait. And it does come with a V60 as well as V60 filters, which is very convenient. If you might not already own one, you're not gonna have to go out and buy another brewer. It comes with it because it would be not fun if it didn't come with it. And when the machine is done brewing, it makes this really cute jingle. The water comes out from the tank and it goes through this main part here, and then it goes out of a 5-tip nozzle. That nozzle has different size holes for the streams. Why that's important, we'll talk about in just a minute. But first I want to show you the app. With this brewer, you have so much control with the app. If you want to go super heavy, fine, go super heavy. You want to go super light, fine. You want to go hotter temperature, you can go hotter temperature. You want to go lower, you can go lower. And you can send QR codes from all your friends' recipes, or if you're a bigger business and you have a bunch of these at all of your locations, you can immediately send those recipes to all your employees and they can download those recipes, and then you are all brewing the same coffee. The tip also controls the variability of your flow rate. It gives you 1 through 10 options, increasing the flow each time, with the lowest option being around 3 mils per second and the highest option being around 12 mils per second. And most people wouldn't top out past 12 on a kettle. In fact, most people brew somewhere around 6 to 8 mils per second. So that gives you plenty of range on both sides. You can do a very light bloom if you want, and you can do a really heavy after pour, or vice versa. You can do whatever you want. It does not have a scale at the bottom. There's no scale. It doesn't even know how much coffee you have in your doser. It doesn't know how much coffee has ended up in the cup. But what it does know is how much water it's already used by weighing the water from the water tank. Why this is important is because in the past, when you've had home brewers like this, and I know we've all seen a million home brewers only to be super disappointed afterwards because they don't make very consistent coffee, jumping up 30 grams or down 50 mils because they don't really measure very accurately. This uses an algorithm to predict exactly when it needs to stop so that it does not go past the point that you need, and it doesn't undercut how much water you're gonna need. That's pretty cool. Another thing that makes it not having a scale really helpful is if you wanted to swirl the brewer mid-brew or use wet WDT, you totally can, and it will not mess up anything about your brew. Now, I know a lot of people are gonna want to use something like a Kalita or an Hiroia or some kind of flat bottom brewer. Heck, you might even put a French press in here, and you absolutely can. But there is a caveat if you wanted to do that. When it comes to the actual nozzle right here, it goes straight down and it does not spin, it does not curve, it does not shoot out in any angle. The streams go straight down. That's it. And some of them are bigger than others. And that was one of the first things I asked whenever I saw them. I said, why is the center one bigger and why are the ones around it smaller? And why this is an important question is because the agitation from the stream, as well as the breakup point from the stream where the water starts to bead, directly impacts your brewing extraction and agitation to your brew. And then they showed me this. That is a box of different prototypes for that nozzle. Bunch of different hole sizes. And honestly, I'm gonna take their word for it that this is the one they landed on with the most consistency. And you'll also notice that when you're looking at the cone bed after it's been brewed, it'll have a slight cone shape to it, assuming you did no kinds of swirls or agitation manually with the pour over. If you do want to have a flat bed, you are totally allowed to simply swirl the coffee. But typically with a flatbed brew, you want an even dispersion of water, and with a V60, you usually will do about a quarter size in the center. This is mimicking that quarter size in the center. So if you're using a flatbed brewer, you're gonna get a very centered pour. And that might not be what you're looking for something like a flatbed brewer. That being said, you can totally get away with hacking it. For instance, if you're somebody who owns something like a Mellow Drip, or maybe you have the top screen to a Tricklet or a Pulsar brewer, you could totally find a way to attach that to something or put it right on top of your brew. And when the water shoots down, it'll actually disperse the water, and boom, you are making flatbed profiles all day long. Unfortunately, I did test it and the Pulsar does not fit. There's not enough clearance unless you use the very shallow and wide decanter. It really wouldn't work. It's a bit too tall, but it is truly made to be working ideally with the V60. Of course, you don't have to limit yourself to the V60, but that is what it's gonna come with and that is what it is prioritizing. Coffee flavor profiles you're gonna get from this are gonna be a traditional V60 profile. You're gonna get that much lighter body, more clarity in your coffee. You're gonna get more brighter acidity. You might not get that heavy stone fruit sweetness that you normally get from a flat brew, as well as the body from a flat brew, but that is what is to be expected from a V60. It's why we brew with V60s. As long as the coffee tastes good and it is consistent and it can hit the extraction, it wins in my book. Now we should put that to the test. So I brewed a ton of coffee on this and I refracted almost all of it. And I regularly hit 19%, but I know you can totally push that into the 20s for sure. Of course, though, it is a V60, so there will be some bypass in your coffee. And lastly, we should talk about the price tag. Currently on the Kickstarter early bird price, it's gonna be something around $3.99. And once it goes into main production, it's gonna be somewhere closer to, I think, $600. This is smarter than most brewers. It is cheaper than most brewers on the market. It gives you a lot of variability or simplicity if that's something you want. You wanna do the Tetsu method? This is like having Tetsu breathe down your neck, and you can feel the humidity and your little hairs on your neck rise a little bit. It takes away all the human inconsistencies and variables, but it is important to know it's not brewing for you. You're still in control here. You're still dosing the coffee, you're still picking the volume, you're still putting in the water, and you're still tasting the coffee in the end. So my scum chum, with all that in mind, I'm curious what you think about this on your first impression. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this, and if you like things like this, well, I got another video right here that is very similar, and you might love it. Maybe you'll hate it. And YouTube never showed this to anybody, so make sure to stick it to them and go like and subscribe on that video too. Cheers, you dirty scumbag.